like a nigga on the prison yard, hoping that he could be on the other side of the fence.
Mm-hmm. Rod, what would you I had a conversation with a priestess, I said Rod Men yesterday about the whole 666
Mm-hmm.
thing, and you know, listening to the teachers like Bobby and they always said that is describing the carbon molecule. 6
Mm-hmm.
protons, 6 electrons, 6 neutrons. What is the future of the carbon molecule? They're saying that we're going from carbon based to, and I might have asked you this before, from carbon based to what's that word they use, family?
Crystalline.
Crystalline based. Is this something, if we're going to from carbon to crystalline, are we going back to the future? Is this, when were we crystalline before? If we're talking about Atlantis, Lemuria, the Polarians and all that, when was we crystalline beings? At what point in history?
That was during the Atlantis period. That's why crystalline beings and carbon-based beings don't behave the same. Carbon-based beings is more volatile chaos energy.
Oh.
Crystalline is more in line with the, because you got to remember your DNA is made up of crystal forms of amino acids.
Right.
Crystalline amino acids. That's what make your DNA up.
Mm-hmm.
And we was externally focused, which made us skin-based.
Right.
Which was part of the racist doctrine to get you to focus on the skin.
Right.
Crystalline, you more internal based. You looking at everything from the inside out, not the outside in. And now you can see with your spiritual eye, or what they call your crystal eyes, your Ujek and Uraeus, with your higher wisdom and your controlled lower nature. Right? They always tell us about the cobra on the crown, but they never tell us about the vulture.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Your lower nature. The vulture is the lower nature that you've conquered.
Mm-hmm.
And the cobra is your higher nature that you've mastered. It's two different struggles going on in the individual. And W.B. Bush wrote about it. He called it the warring soul.
Right.
Right? The part of the self that want to go along with the society at large, and the part of the self that want to truly express itself from its purest source. Right? So you're talking your spiritual self versus your ego self. Your ego is the sum total of everything that you've ever been told about yourself that may or may not be true, but you accepted it as so because that defined who you was from the external world's perspective. So you're trying to live your life fitting into the perspective of everything you agreed to in your ego, and you haven't even tested it to see if it's compatible with who you are.
Very interesting. Let's go through a couple of historical terms, Rod. We're talking about melanin. We're talking about race. And once again, family, if you're just joining us, there was a Senate hearing with RFK. I advise y'all to go see what's going on. Very interesting things have been happening since Trump has been president. I cannot lie. He's really shaking things up. Some people don't like it. Some people do like it. But things are being shaken up. That's one thing we all could agree on, whether you like it or not like what's going on.
You remember I told you as soon as you take office, everything gonna speed up.
Yeah, you did say that. Indeed. Let's go through a couple of historical terms to try to figure out who we are, where we come from, and how we got here, Rod. Let's talk, and this is a term me and you talk about on the phone. We haven't talked about on the internet, Neanderthals. Now, that was a term, a lot of brothers use that term to insult. I had a conversation with you, and you're like, nah, the black people was a Neanderthal. So
when the Neanderthal was present, they was here before the original race called the moon race. Today we call them white people. But back then we used to call them albinos, albions. Right? They wasn't here. If you look up the time frame, matter of fact, I'm gonna go to it so I can tell you. We know from historical record there was no pale faces on planet Earth before 8,400 years ago.
So they're a young race. They got fresh legs.
Yeah, the newest race.
New kids on the block.
Yeah. Okay, so the Homo sapiens, the hominin species that existed for at least 200,000 years throughout Europe and Western Asia and disappeared 27,000 years ago. So that was 8,500 years ago from 27,000. That's about 18,000 years before paleface emerged. The last Neanderthal was here. Right. All peoples on the planet Earth was melanated, and it was intervention in laboratories that caused the lower spectrum of the DNA to outwardly express. Everything that you see in the human arena is on the DNA of the great mother, the first mother. All of your DNA traits, the full spectrum, from your lightest skin to your darkest skin, from your tightest curl hair to your straightest hair, it's all in her DNA. Right? Bobby Hemmings said it was a woman walking around with universes in her uterus in America. And when y'all figure out who she is, she's the mother of all of us. She don't take no sides in sibling rivalry. She tell y'all to sort that stuff out, and y'all come to me when y'all know how to act right. We got to get over this racist doctrine because it's a critical mechanism of divide and conquer.
Right.
And as Dr. Neely Fuller said, if you don't understand white supremacy is a military strategy. If you don't understand white supremacy, everything that you think you understand is actually confusing.
Yes. Okay.
White supremacy is codified and called the protocols of the wise men or the learned elders of Zion. And the rollout to it is the morals and dogma of Albert Pike. The battleground is the corporation known as the United States, the interim government for the last hurrah of the Great War.
Which is the Great War, which is
the 6,000-year reign of the people that was antithesis to Earth, the inverted people,
so
from
even,
the mirror universe.
So even when we the fifth root race they say is the Aryans. So even the Aryans, original Aryans, were melanated people then.
They still is. The original Aryans, they called them the Untouchables of India. They call them Dravidians. They look like the Jackson 5s from the early 70s. They whole bloodline. Some of them got wavy hair and they dark. Some of them darker than us. Rich, make me and you look light skinned.
Oh man, this is some. All right, so another term. You seen the video with Noble Ample, and he mentioned Abraham Lincoln. Now, people said he was a Melungian. That's not a term we hear about anymore. What are Melungians, Rod Hayes? And who were the Melungians?
See, there's so many different names. It's hard to keep up with them. That one is not one we use a lot. Yeah, see, those was just another name for mixed people. People that come from a diversified genetic stock. It's like calling them a mutt.
Mulatto, like okay. The current term for that would be mulatto.
No, mulatto, you could be 50%, and you can look heavily melanated or lightly melanated and be a mulatto.
Right.
That means you have 50%. Right, to be a quadroon, meaning you 1/4. To be an octoroon, meaning you 1/8. But remember, the doctrine is 1 drop of blood. Right. So even if you 1/8, you still could classify as so-called black.
Yeah, you mentioned Elvis some earlier. Somebody said Elvis was Melungian. Would you classify him as Melungian, Elvis?
He would easily fall in it. That was the name given to the people that mixed in the Appalachians region.
Right. Indeed. Yeah, this is wow. I'm glad having this conversation with you. Let me ask you, in terms of the I think you called it the flash flood, or when the ice age.
Yeah, that was after the war. That was the nuclear winter after the last Anunnaki Great Holocaust War.
Okay, a time frame. We're looking at 10,000 years. 10,000 years ago, Rod.
Yeah, you can just look up the beginning of the last ice age to give you the time frame.
Okay, let's see.
Yeah, so it lasted from about 115,000 to 11,700 years ago.
Damn, the ice age was that long, right?
Yeah.
So what the hell was going on the planet? If there's a whole ice age for 100,000 years, what's happening on the planet
It,
at that time?
it was a nuclear winter.
A nuclear winter. And
Yeah.
okay, so this nuclear winter was caused by the Anunnaki.
It was caused by the last Anunnaki's war, what they call the Great Holocaust, also known as the Verminus War. The Verminus Sutras write about it. Those were the Aryan races in India who was writing about it back then, and they left the text to tell some of the story, but it was more than them that tell the story.
Damn.
They only give you bits and pieces, like in the Bible, Sodom and Gomorrah. They don't tell you that was a nuclear disaster.
Sodom and wow.
Then you got the remnants of nuclear war all over Saharan Africa.
Yeah.
You know, in the pyramid complex, the Mediterranean is filling in a crater from a bomb. Mount Vesuvius was blown because the crater began to leak into the inner earth, so they had to patch it with the lava from Mount Vesuvius. Then you had the Gulf of America, formerly known as the Gulf of Mexico, as a crater. That's not even a secret. They already know that's part of regular science. Meteor struck where the Mediterranean is, meteors. Those was atomic bombs.
Who was the Anunnaki beefing with at the
They
time?
fighting each other. They was having sibling rivalries in a fight for dominance within an internal family, and they used people like chess pieces to play the war out in the open, in the general population. So you got them controlling the war by nobody not knowing that the war is taking place. But the ultimate end game is to wake up from the slumber of the Piscean age in the artificially induced nuclear winter in order for us to come back to our senses as to who we were as eternal beings. We always been, we gonna always be, but we didn't always have bodies. Meat modems, Earth rovers.
Since we're so familiar with this vehicle, we call the Earth rovers. We done had some good shows about this vehicle we call the human body, right? I mean, we done did about 4 or 5 different segments on it, man, and just touched on it from different angles, man. It's been dope. What vehicle did we use before the human body, Rod?
We whole like when you're not in the physical body, you was called a whole light being. Or etheric being.
I thought you was gonna say something like dragons or some shit like that, Rod.
No, dragon is a metaphor, comparative analysis. It don't mean dragons didn't exist. But when you say we dragons, that means we spit fire when we talk. We masters, we high chiefs. Right? Dragon mean master. Master with the power to control and speak into existence a thing was commonly referred to in Kemet as Husia, exceptional or authoritative utterance, exceptional insight. That make you a dragon.
Yeah, y'all. This is the man. So, all right. So when the nuclear winter thing, that is a very interesting part of history that a lot of people don't know about. When the nuclear winter was coming to an end, and on Google it says the ice age ended around 11,000 years ago. what's the civilization that popped up on the scene? The first civilization once this nuclear ice age ended, Rod, this nuclear winter.
Okay, so Atlantis was still operational. It's just a lot of its metropolises had been rendered useless through warfare. Right? So now we coming from out of the ice age 11,000 years ago, and this is when you see the rise of Kemet. The onset of modern history, the settling of Samaria. Right? So all it is, like if you go back to the first dynastic period, that's not the first dynasty. They had kings lists with kings that lived and ruled for thousands of years, because we was living back then. It was called the forever time, or the Tepi, I think is how you pronounce it. Right? The eternal time, the time where the physical body, if you had a proper diet, you could homeostasis set in, and you know how to maintain the balance, then your body could live for a prolonged time. And then you had the aid of secondary avatars to use too. While this one getting repaired in the sarcophagi, I can get up in another body and walk around like I ain't in there getting worked on.
Ain't that some shit? So it's gonna go back to that, Rod?
We still had the technology. It was just frozen in Antarctica. They got it now.
They got the technology in Antarctica.
Yeah. Yeah. They thought them people out. They the ones telling them all the moves to make. They thought when Richard Burton went down to Antarctica to see what they was doing down there, he discovered that it was frozen over. It was flash froze. People was in the middle of the street. They never get to move. They walking down the street in motion and frozen. That means they was frozen instantly. Now they need to know how to throw them out. This is where you get the cryostasis from. We ain't know nothing about no cryostasis until we got there messing with the people in Antarctica. They frozen and telepathic at the same time. Let that sink in.
Woo. Yo, family, ain't this is some interesting? This is the history that is heavily suppressed.
Listen, when they thawed them out, they told us over here that these people came from Africa and adapted extremely well to the cold of Antarctica, and they called them the Bazinga tribe. That's some BS. They was already in Antarctica, and they already told them how to thaw them out. They already had this technology. This is nothing new. Nothing new under the sun, Brother Rich. We did all of this stuff a bazillion times. But it was the same but different every time.
Right. The same but different every time. You know what I think is confusing, Rod? All right, so the shit you talking about, Rod, and I always be like, yo, Rod, you be saying some out of this world shit, Rod. And you talking about, nuclear winters and Anunnaki beings and people being able to use different avatars, different bodies. I think what's confusing to melanated people in particular, I think white people could gravitate, when I'm quote, white, black, they could grasp concepts easier sometimes because of their lack of, I guess, indoctrination. Like we were indoctrinated with religion. Everything is just evil to us. Everything is the devil to us. And
that's the barrier of fear.
Yeah. And but this is what I was gonna say. Some of our master teachers, Rod, like let's say Dr. Ben, let's say Dr. John Henry Clark, they didn't say the stuff you saying. So when you come after them, right? And I'm not even talking about Dr. York now. Let's just say Dr. Ben, Dr. John Henry Clark. When you come after them and say this stuff, the first thing people think is, well, hey, the master teachers, Dr. Ben, Dr. John Henry Clark, Ivan Van Sertima, so on and so forth. They didn't say it, so this dude has got to be out his MFM mind because they didn't say it. So my thing is like, why you think they didn't talk about some of this stuff?
A lot of the stuff I'm talking about, they make mention of.
Okay.
Right. when we start, see, we starting at history beginning, modern history, right? At the first dynasty of Egypt. That's when we got the first clock of modern time.
First dynasty of Egypt.
Right. So, because this is the standard of history. Anything before that is called antediluvian history.
Antediluvian. Yeah.
Which means before the flood.
Right.
Which means when the ice finally melted from the artificially induced nuclear winter, the melting of the ice caused mud to be everywhere. It wasn't a literal flood; it was frozen.
So it wasn't a literal flood like how we think it was.
No, everything was frozen, and then when the nuclear winter, it can't break until it cleaned the radiation up enough. This is what switches your genetics, by the way. Radiation is what causes the unnatural change in DNA. And this is what caused us to go from magnesium-based to iron-based. Because we was originally breathing ozone, the double O oxygen molecule. Now we breathe in the single oxygen molecule. So it changes the rate of combustion in the biology. When we using magnesium, right, we giving off radiant shades of blue and green. We look like that movie, The Avatar, except we not tall. With tails, we standing around with blue skin and afros, blue skin and straighty hair. But we all had shades of blue to green. This is why you see that Osiris is olive green. You see Krishna is baby blue. Sometimes he's navy blue. Kali Ma, she's blue, almost black. So the different shades.
Genealogy records, or
you get signs. Like you just told me you was a Mississippian out the gate.
Yeah.
The Mississippian is one of the oldest tribes, and they connected to every tribe. This is why we can become honorary members of all of the tribes. When this type of work need to be done, all of the tribes put us through the ringer. I haven't been, even though I've been in the criminal underworld, so to speak, for this society. And of all of the despised and rejected, I become the most loved and respected.